know I've got to face the redcoats. There's a big difference between now I've got to go home and, hey, you're going home and you're going home and you're going home and you're going home, and all of you are going to go home and tell people about the coolest company in the world that none of them have ever probably heard of. And you got other people saying, oh, you Continentals have never won a battle. In fact, come and join and be a turncoat and fight for the other side. Why are you putting up with that? You guys realize you have to go home and fight a battle now when you've never won a battle before. Can we all agree on that that's a challenging thing? I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. Now, when it comes to terror or courage, I'm not an expert on this, but I'll just tell you a couple personal things. And I know you know this. You never really know what it's going to be like when you get in a situation when your life's really in jeopardy. And I'm talking about stuff that's like really, really hard. And I'm talking about other stuff. And what I'm going to tell you is, the first part I'm going to tell you is actually easier than the second part. I will never forget the first time we were actually going to go into an engagement. And everybody's kind of talking a lot of smack. And I remember it got kind of quiet. You know the quiet? And riding out. And I remember riding in on the Blackhawk. And I'd never been in contact before. And I remember just kind of sitting there thinking to myself, well, I guess tonight it's going to happen. It was the first night of the air war. We were supposed to take out this radar system for 6 surface-to-air missiles so all these British tornadoes could fly through without getting blown up. So part of our team was going to go blow up the radar. I was going to go tap a landline to see if they were going to drop either Scuds or chemical weapons on us. So I had this great big pack full of communications equipment. I'm rocking on it back in the Blackhawk, sitting there in the dark, and you just got the red lights on. And they're like, okay, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. So we come in, the helicopter fans, and I step out backwards like this. And my right leg hit the ground. We were going to infill down a little wadi, which is like a depression. And we were going to land on top and walk down in it. Well, I stepped back, and there was a really bad wind that night. My right foot hit the edge of the wadi. My left foot hit air. And I had a big pack on my back because I didn't want to throw this. I had a lot of sensitive communications equipment in it, and I didn't want to throw it out like you normally would do or step out face first. So I figured I'll just cut a corner and step out backwards. Well, my left foot just hit air. And I fell, and I think it was probably 10, 12 feet, but I don't know if it was dark. And I remember watching, the helicopter took off, and I remember the strobe light, and I was falling, and I remember my left ankle landed like this, and I heard a crack and a snap, and it turned around, and my left leg was completely twisted up backwards behind me. My ankle was turned around 180 degrees. And I had like this lightning pain, and my neck snapped backwards, my eyes went white. And I'll never forget the helicopter doing this and that strobe light going, because we were like 11 clicks away from what we were going to do, because you have to be quiet with the chopper, and we were downwind. We were going to walk in there and do our thing and then exfil out. And I remember laying there thinking, there's no helicopter coming because there's no medevac, there's nothing, and we're about 130 miles north up in this valley, and I'm laying there with my leg underneath my back, and team leader and chief comes up and he just says, oh man. So I had to lay there, and then you make a decision. I'm either going to walk, I'm going to get captured, and all I could think was that Russian colonel flying in and say, we are going to talk, you know what I mean? And car battery, and I'm nude, and I didn't want to deal with that. The third thing I figured was, well, I'll just fight, and they'll eventually get me. That'll be it. So I'm laying there like that, and they pulled my leg out, and it hurt terrible. And my ankle was snapped backwards, and our team medic snapped my leg into place, and it made this loud pop. And it was in a boot, my leg was turned around backwards. And it was crazy, man. So we didn't know what to do. So long story short, we wrapped 100-mile-an-hour tape around my ankle real tight, and hit a shred of morphine in it, and I had to walk. And it was a really, really, really long night. And I remember thinking to myself, it hurts so bad. In fact, I brought this. It was exactly 25 years ago this week. And I wasn't going to bring this, but I carried it with me because I like to remember, because this is why Liberty. This was the boot that cut off my leg at the cache. And I kept it with me for all these years. And what blows me away about it the most is this had about 1.5 inch sole on it. And I wore this, I left my leg like that for the next almost 2.5 months because I didn't want to get evac out. What was weird is I had a 3rd-degree open separation, found out later, with 21 bone chips. But my ankle had this kind of flexion, so I could like walk. But it was swollen up it was black and blue up to the knee with like these weird drops going down it. But it was really bad, and I remember that night walking, and I remember getting this cut off later. It was kind of weird, and I just said I want the boot. But look how bad a shape that thing's in. That was on my foot solid for almost probably 3 months. The sock was like rotting off. My toes were sticking out and everything. My toenails were about 15 feet long. So I actually cut them, and I put them in an envelope and mailed them to a friend, so when he opened the card, they fell out. that aside, I remember walking, and I remember thinking, there's no way I can do this, because it's really, 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 really bad. And I mean, the pain, and come to find out later too, I got a 15-degree slant in my sacral joint from my pelvis, getting slammed up, and I got a bone crack, and I got 2 crushed vertebrae, and all kinds of weird problems. And it was really bad pain. So I'm walking, and I kind of went into shock, so I'm like sweating. And I remember kept thinking to myself, there's no way I can do this tonight, but I can always just take the next step. So you just take the next step, and it was really, really hard. But I wasn't thinking I'm going to walk 11 kilometers in and then do the job, and then I won't even tell you all the stuff that happened that night and then get out. I just kept thinking, I can't walk 20 kilometers tonight, but I can take the next step. And so the way to overcome fear is not to sit there and think, I got to go Royal Diamond, I got to find prospects, I got to go home and watch my area. The way to overcome fear is there's 2 things I'll tell you. Just do the next thing. And there's always one more thing you can do. Yeah, I'll say it to you again. When you want to take on fear, 2 things I'll tell you. Do the next thing. And there's always one more thing you can do. Because when you start being panicky and afraid, you start thinking about the bad things that are going to happen. And the way you take control of the situation, you start taking out the next target. When you come under fire, you don't worry about what's coming at you because you can't control it. You just sight somebody and you squeeze. And you take out the next tango. That's it. You just go. And that's the only way you can get through it, because if you actually let yourself think about what's happening, you couldn't do your job. When you were working on somebody and fire was coming in, if you think about the bullets, you couldn't take care of your patient. So what did you do? You focused on your patient. Because you had to get your boys out of there, right? That's how you get through it. You don't think about the consequences. You think about the action. So if you guys are into terror and you're in the terror barrier, you're thinking about the fear. And what happens when you start getting into the engagement, you start thinking about the thing. And the more you act, the less fear you have. So the way to do and get over the terror barrier is you don't get courage and then do the thing. You do the thing and then you get courage. And that's the unfortunate reality. What do you think the reaction was of the Continental Army when they stood up to the British for the first time? Then they could never be beaten. So if you're going to hit the terror barrier, just start sighting some targets. Start squeezing some rounds. What ends up happening, which is really interesting, you're usually fighting someone that's scared too. When you start moving and shooting, even if you're outnumbered, they get more scared of you than you are of them, and that's what happens. And remember, don't worry about the bullets coming to get you, because if it gets you, you're not going to know anyway, so who cares? Right? And if I'm going to go down, there's going to be nothing left in the clip. I promise you that. And there's going to be a whole stack of friends around me. So I'm asking you, what's the worst that can happen to you at NECAN? What's the best that can happen? And by the way, even if you did not achieve Royal Diamond in this business, wouldn't it be great to know that you did everything you could to be free?
Yes.
So the price for Lauren was scars and hurts and sadness, probably some physical pain. I know you got some pain from serving in the Navy. I got 21 bone chips in my ankle, a cracked back, 2 crushed vertebrae. I got burns in my lungs from a vehicle fire. I got some concussion issues in my mind, and I got some things I got to deal with for my family. And those are all small prices to pay. What I have found is what's more difficult is when I'm home and I've got to get up my rear end and do things and be free. It's easier when you're in a war zone to exercise courage than it is when you're home and there's not an immediate threat. I actually believe we have a more difficult task when it comes to courage than somebody does in battle, because in battle it's clear, it's immediate, it's almost liberating. I had no bills, no family, no nothing. Sure, I might get blown up, but I didn't have any problems. And I'm going to tell you, there's a lot more to fear there's a lot less to fear when you're fighting for liberty than when you're home living for freedom. And that's a fact. So my question to you is, as I kind of wrap this up, what is going to be your price to pay for your freedom? I got some hurts for your liberty, so do you, so do a lot of other people that get a heck of a lot more than I did. And I only told you that story because someone asked me. I don't like talking about that stuff. I just wanted you to know that's what I learned, is I can't take all the steps, I can take the next one. But are you willing to pay the price of driving and nobody coming, or somebody signing up and not sticking, or somebody not doing what they say? Are you willing to fly somewhere when you don't have any downline there to be around Dave Johnson and Dennis Williams and Ruth Williams and Valerie Johnson and Mike DiMuccio? Are you willing to go home and have the courage to say, I refuse to not have freedom and work that job? I'd rather be broke and busted going after NECAN than barely above my bills and sell my freedom. The only thing I truly own is my freedom and my liberty, and I refuse to go quietly into the night. Are you willing to have a few bumps and bruises for your freedom when there's people overseas right now bleeding for your liberty? They're dying for your liberty. Will you live for your own freedom? That's what I'm asking. It doesn't take courage to do that. It takes common sense. So as you guys all sit here in this special place, and this is our Valley Forge this weekend, when you look back on this, we've got 60,000 people in arenas. We will have 2,500 in San Antonio this fall. Wait till you see this place. We've never had a venue like this. The Pope would come in there and put on a fancier outfit. That's how nice this place is. I mean that sincerely. I stood in it the other day. I couldn't believe the size of it. 2,500 seats, 3 decks, 180 feet tall, built-in lights, cameras, staging, 130-foot stage. Y'all realize we're going first class. We're not putting that together, are we, Mike? 'Cause we got nothing better to do. We're putting it there because we believe you're going to exercise your freedom. We're doing that for your liberty. Will you fill it for your freedom?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So here's the last thing I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to read this as we finish up. This was written on the 100th anniversary of Valley Forge. And I hope you all hear this. 100th anniversary. And here, in this place of sacrifice, in the vale of humiliation, in the valley of the shadow of death, out of which the life of America rose, regenerate and free, let us believe in an abiding faith that to them union will seem as dear, and liberty will seem as sweet, and progress as glorious as they were to our fathers that paid these prices. They are to you and me, and the institutions which have made us happy, preserved by the virtue of our children, shall bless the remotest generations of time to come. And I would like to say in here, in Logan, Utah, in this place of sacrifice and partnership, in the vale of humiliation, in the valley of the shadow of change, the life of Nikan rose, regenerate and free. Let us believe in abiding faith that to them, all that we do will seem as dear as it does to us. The progress will be as glorious as it was to the people that came before us. And that the institutions which have made us happy and prosperous and able to be balanced will be preserved by the people we've yet to sponsor. And that Nikan, by the virtue of our children, shall bless the remotest generations of time to come. And I'm proud to have been here with you this weekend.